The rain had been falling all night, steady and cold, drumming on the rooftops as if the sky itself was restless. The Alpha King's estate was unusually quiet, save for the distant howl of wolves that always seemed to echo on nights when something was about to change. Cassandra stood by the tall window of her room, her fingers pressed lightly against the glass. She had been awake for hours, staring into the darkness, her heart oddly heavy. She couldn't explain it, but she had felt something brewing all day, a heaviness that clung to her skin like mist. Then, just before dawn, the gates opened. She saw him before anyone else did. A lone figure on horseback, soaked to the bone, moving slowly as though each step was chosen carefully. The guard at the gate hesitated, but eventually let him through, perhaps sensing what Cassandra could feel even from this distance, that this man belonged here. When he dismounted, the torchlight caught his face. Cassandra's breath caught in her throat. Elijah. She whispered the name to herself, as though afraid it would break if spoken too loud. The sound of hurried footsteps thundered through the hallway. Servants began shouting, voices filled with disbelief, excitement, confusion. Micha appeared at her door, his shirt half-buttoned, eyes narrowing as he looked outside. No, Micha, Cassandra's adopted brother, said flatly, his jaw tightening. That's impossible. But by the time the Alpha King stormed out into the courtyard, followed by his wife and half the household, there was no denying it. Elijah had returned, only he was not the Elijah they had lost. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, his once soft features now cut sharp with age and hard living. His eyes, once bright and boyish, had turned into something cold and unreadable, glinting like silver beneath the torchlight. He didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't rush forward to embrace the father who had spent years searching for him. Instead, Elijah simply stood there, rain dripping from his hair, his jaw set like stone. Welcome home, son, the Alpha King said, his voice rough with emotion. Elijah nodded once. It's been a long time, he said, his voice deeper, steady, but empty of warmth. Cassandra ran out to him before she could stop herself. She hadn't realized she was crying until she saw her hands trembling as she reached for him. Elijah, do you remember me? Her voice cracked. He turned his head slowly toward her, studying her like she was a stranger. Then, after a long pause, he gave a small, polite nod. Yes, he said. I remember. But Cassandra knew from the hollow look in his eyes that it was a lie. Micha watched silently from the shadows of the porch, his arms crossed. Something about Elijah's stance, too calm, too composed, made his stomach twist. This wasn't the return of a long-lost brother. This was the arrival of a stranger carrying a secret. That night, the estate was alive with celebration, but Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that the boy she had once loved like her own blood was gone forever. She followed him with her eyes across the great hall as music played and laughter filled the air. He never once laughed. When their gazes met from across the room, a shiver ran through her. His stare was steady, unblinking, too intense. It wasn't the look of a brother. And though Cassandra didn't know it yet, this night would mark the beginning of something she could never take back. Something darker, more dangerous, and far more forbidden than she could imagine. The celebration stretched deep into the night, but Elijah didn't stay until the end. Cassandra noticed him slip out of the great hall and vanish into the shadows beyond the courtyard. Something in her chest tightened. She followed him. The night was quiet, except for the soft hiss of rain dripping from the trees. Elijah stood at the far edge of the grounds, facing the dark forest. His back was straight, his hands clasped behind him. He didn't turn as she approached. You used to hate the forest, Cassandra said softly, trying to keep her voice light. You were scared of the dark. I used to hold your hand just to get you to take a step inside. There was a long silence. Then Elijah spoke, his voice even. I don't remember that. Cassandra frowned, stepping closer. Then maybe I can help you. We used to climb that old fig tree near the training yard. You fell once and scraped your knee so bad you wouldn't stop crying for hours. This time, he turned to look at her. His silver-grey eyes seemed to pierce through her, unreadable, guarded. That must have been hard for you, he said quietly. Cassandra blinked. Hard for me? Elijah, you were the one bleeding. But Elijah said nothing more. Inside, he was unravelling. Valerie's voice echoed in his mind, the lessons she drilled into him for years. You are not one of them. You do not belong there. Do not get distracted. Do not forget why you are going back. He forced his jaw to relax. I'll try to remember, he said, softer this time, almost as if it cost him something. Cassandra smiled faintly, relief flooding her. Good. Tomorrow I'll take you to the training grounds. Maybe being there will help. When she left him there and returned to the hall, Elijah stayed a while longer, staring into the trees. His hands curled into fists. The next morning, Cassandra found him waiting by the stables. True to her word, she led him across the estate, pointing out familiar places, sharing old memories, the kitchen where he once stole bread rolls, the garden where they used to play tag. Each time, Elijah nodded politely, repeating the right words, pretending to recall what he did not. But his eyes stayed flat, empty of recognition. At the training yard, Cassandra crouched by the fig tree, running her fingers over the scar on its trunk. You carved your name here, she said softly, tracing the faded letters. You made me carve mine next to yours. Said we'd always be together. For the first time, Elijah crouched beside her. His fingers brushed over the old carving. Always, he repeated under his breath, but there was no nostalgia in his voice. Cassandra looked up at him, startled by the intensity in his gaze. Elijah? He stood abruptly, his mask sliding back into place. I should see father, he said, his tone curt. As they walked back to the main house, Micha was waiting at the door, arms crossed, his expression stormy. You've been gone all morning, Micha said sharply. His eyes flicked to Elijah. Shouldn't you be resting after a 13-year absence? I'm fine, Elijah said smoothly. You seem more worried about me than my own sister. Misha's jaw clenched. Someone has to be. Cassandra shot Micha a warning look. Stop it! Elijah just came back. Can't we all try to get along? But Micha said nothing more, and as Elijah brushed past him into the house, the tension between the two men was so thick Cassandra could almost taste it. That night, Elijah sat alone in his room, staring at the carving knife he had taken from the training yard. His thoughts were a storm. Cassandra's laughter, Valerie's warnings, the Alpha King's proud smile. He closed his eyes, gripping the knife until his knuckles went white. I cannot forget. I will not. But when he pictured Cassandra's face, soft and hopeful as she told him stories of their childhood, something inside him twisted. For the first time, the mission didn't feel so simple. Elijah sat by the dim fire in his room, Valerie's voice a constant echo in his mind. Do not forget why I took you in, and what we are fighting for. Do not forget who left me to die. You are my vengeance, Elijah. You are my justice. He gritted his teeth and gripped the carving knife tighter. He had promised her, on his blood, on his life, that he would make the Alpha King pay. And yet, Cassandra's laughter from earlier that day still rang in his ears. She had smiled at him with such trust, as if she believed he was still the little brother who used to hold her hand under the fig tree. He leaned back in his chair and let the firelight dance across his face. "I will not forget my mission," he told himself, "but I cannot let her see what I am here to do." When morning came, Elijah joined the family for breakfast. He played the part of the quiet, distant son well, answering questions with just enough warmth to seem believable. Cassandra sat beside him, trying to draw him out, asking him about the places he had been, the people he had met. He lied easily. He had learned from Valerie how to weave just enough truth into the lie to make it impossible to untangle. Micha, however, was watching him closely. After breakfast, Micha followed one of the guards outside and quietly asked about Elijah's arrival. None of them could say where Elijah had come from or who had found him. Misha's frown deepened. "He just appeared at the gate," one of the guards said, like he was waiting for the right moment. That night, while the house slept, Micha went to the records room. He opened the old chest where Elijah's childhood belongings had been kept: drawings, wooden toys, scraps of memory preserved by Cassandra over the years. Micha stared at them, wondering if the man in the next room could truly be the boy who once owned these things. Meanwhile, Elijah moved through the estate like a shadow. He entered the Alpha King's study silently, careful not to disturb a single thing except the ledger he was looking for. He found the one detailing trade routes and shipment times, routes that kept the kingdom's resources secure. With a small, calculated smile, Elijah closed the book and moved one of the markers, altering the schedule just enough to cause disruption in a few days' time. It was a small act, quiet and invisible, but it would set the first domino falling. The next morning, Cassandra noticed Elijah looked calmer, almost satisfied, though he said nothing of what he had done. She invited him to ride with her, and to her surprise, he agreed. As they rode side by side, she felt the strange tension between them shift. "Do you remember when we used to race here?" she asked. Elijah glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "I remember you were fast," he said quietly. Cassandra smiled, feeling an odd warmth in her chest. She had been trying so hard to bring him back to her, piece by piece. Maybe, just maybe, she was succeeding. But Micha was watching from a distance, his grip on the reins tightening. Something about Elijah's calm unnerved him, as if the man wasn't healing from trauma, but hiding something dangerous. When they returned to the estate, Micha confronted Elijah in the stables. "You're good at pretending," Micha said coldly. Elijah raised a brow. "Pretending what?" "That you belong here," Micha shot back. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other, two wolves circling the same prey. Then Elijah smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Careful, Micha," he said softly. "You wouldn't want Cassandra to think you're jealous." Misha's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply turned and walked away, his mind already racing with ways to uncover Elijah's past. And in the quiet of his room that night, Elijah whispered Valerie's name under his breath like a vow. Cassandra found herself unable to sleep. The house had gone silent, save for the crackle of the dying fire in the hall. She padded down the corridor, her nightrobe trailing softly behind her. She wasn't surprised to find Elijah awake. He was sitting in the courtyard, a lone figure beneath the pale glow of moonlight, elbows resting on his knees, staring into nothing. There was something haunted about the way he sat, too still, too controlled, as though even at rest he was holding himself together by sheer will. "You don't sleep much, do you?" Cassandra's voice was quiet, almost shy. Elijah turned his head, his eyes catching the moonlight. "Sleep is difficult," he said after a pause. She hesitated, then moved closer, sitting across from him. "Nightmares?" He studied her for a long moment before nodding once. Sometimes. There was a stretch of silence between them, the night air cool and heavy. Then, slowly, Cassandra asked, "Where were you all those years, Elijah? What happened to you?" He didn't answer immediately. His jaw worked as if the words were hard to release. Finally, he leaned back against the stone pillar and spoke in a voice so low she had to strain to hear. "I don't remember much of the night I was taken," he began. "I remember the sound of rain and hands, rough hands pulling me away. I thought I would die." Cassandra's throat tightened. "But someone found me," he continued, his gaze fixed on the moon. "A woman, a stranger. She took me in, gave me food, gave me a name, gave me purpose." There was something dangerous in the way he said purpose, but Cassandra didn't question it. She could see how hard it was for him to talk about this at all. "She sounds kind," Cassandra whispered. "She was," Elijah said softly. "She saved me when no one else came." Cassandra lowered her gaze, guilt twisting in her chest. "We looked for you," she said, her voice breaking. "Father searched for years. I prayed every night you'd come back." Elijah turned to look at her then, really look at her, and something shifted in his expression, a softness that wasn't there before. "You waited for me," he said quietly. "That's enough." Cassandra's breath caught. The warmth in his voice shouldn't have made her heart beat this fast, but it did. She felt it then, the dangerous pull between them, something far stronger than nostalgia or relief. For a moment, neither of them moved. The night held its breath. And then, "Cassandra." The sound of Micha's voice shattered the fragile stillness. Cassandra flinched and turned, startled to see him standing at the edge of the courtyard. His expression was thunderous, his eyes locked on Elijah. "What are you doing out here?" Micha's voice was tight, too controlled. "Talking," Cassandra said quickly, rising to her feet. "I couldn't sleep." Micha's gaze never left Elijah. "Then talk to me, not him." Elijah rose slowly, his movements calm but deliberate. "She's free to talk to whoever she chooses," he said softly, but there was steel in his tone. Micha took a step closer, the tension between them stretching tight as a bowstring. "Stay away from her," he said coldly. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I won't let you drag her into it." Elijah's lips curved into the faintest smile, though his eyes stayed icy. "You seem very protective for a brother." Misha's jaw clenched, but he didn't respond. Instead, he took Cassandra by the arm and led her back inside. Cassandra glanced over her shoulder, her heart pounding. Elijah stood where she had left him, his silhouette framed in moonlight, watching them go. There was no anger on his face, no sadness, only that quiet, unreadable intensity that left Cassandra both shaken and breathless. And as she lay awake in her bed later, staring at the ceiling, she realized with a mix of fear and shame that she couldn't stop thinking about him. The next few days were tense. Micha barely spoke to Elijah unless it was clipped and formal. Cassandra noticed the stiffness in Misha's shoulders, the way his jaw set whenever Elijah entered the room. The entire house could feel it, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. One morning at breakfast, the Alpha King announced that Elijah would accompany him to the council meeting. "I think it's time Elijah begins to take his rightful place again," the Alpha King said, pride gleaming in his voice. Misha's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean he is my first son," the Alpha King said patiently. "It is time the council sees him." Micha swallowed hard, setting his fork down with a soft clink. "I've been handling council matters for years," he said. "They trust me. And they will trust Elijah too, the Alpha King replied, his tone final. When Elijah rose from his seat to leave with their father, he glanced briefly at Micha, a faint glimmer of triumph in his eyes. That night, Micha found Elijah in the stables, brushing down one of the horses. "You think just because you've come back, you can push me aside?" Micha demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Elijah didn't look at him, his strokes slow and deliberate. "Push you aside," he echoed softly. "I don't need to, Micha. You were never meant to stand where you do." Micha stiffened. "You're the adopted son," Elijah said evenly, finally turning to face him. "I am blood. I am heir." The words cut deeper than Micha expected. "You weren't here," Micha spat. "I was. I carried this family when you were gone." "And yet," Elijah said with a ghost of a smile, "it still isn't yours." Micha lunged forward before he could stop himself, grabbing Elijah by the front of his shirt. "Stay out of my way," he hissed. Elijah didn't flinch. His eyes were cool, calm, infuriatingly steady. "Careful, brother," he murmured. "Your jealousy is showing." Cassandra's voice rang from the stable door. "Micha!" Both men turned. She stood there, her face pale with shock. "What are you doing?" she demanded, stepping between them. Micha released Elijah and took a step back, his chest heaving. "He's trying to take everything, Cass. Can't you see that?" Cassandra turned on him, hurt flashing in her eyes. "You've been cruel to him since the moment he came back. This isn't about the family. This is about you not wanting to share anything. Not father, not me." Misha's face twisted. "You think I'm jealous?" "Yes," Cassandra said sharply. "And it's ugly." Micha went silent, the words hitting harder than he expected. Elijah stood a few steps behind Cassandra, his expression unreadable. But deep inside, something strange twisted in his chest. He should have been pleased. Cassandra had chosen his side. Yet as he watched Micha storm away, he felt an unfamiliar flicker of guilt. That night, Elijah sat alone in his room, staring at the moonlight spilling across the floor. He should have been thinking about the plan, about Valerie's lessons, about the next step in his quiet sabotage. But all he could see was Cassandra's face as she defended him. All he could hear was Misha's ragged breathing, the hurt in his voice. For the first time, Elijah wondered if revenge was the only way out. The message came at night. Elijah was seated by the window, the moon washing him in pale silver light, when the raven landed on the sill. Its black eyes glittered, its claws scraping the wood as it dropped a sealed note at his feet. He froze. The seal was unmistakable, Valerie's crest. With careful fingers, Elijah broke the wax. "You are losing focus, my son," the letter read. "The Alpha King must pay. Do not forget the nights I wept over what he did to me. Do not forget why I saved you, why I raised you when everyone abandoned you to die. You are my vengeance, Elijah. My blade. Finish what we began." The words cut through him like cold steel. He closed his eyes, Valerie's voice ringing in his memory, the way she had told him stories by firelight, her hands smoothing his hair as a boy. The promise he had made to her burned like a brand on his soul. But so did Cassandra's voice, soft and fierce, defending him in the stables. Elijah crushed the letter in his fist, his jaw tight. A quiet knock came at his door. "Elijah?" Cassandra's voice was hesitant. He turned sharply, hiding the crumpled letter in his pocket before opening the door. She stood there in her nightrobe, her hair loose around her shoulders, her face troubled. "You missed dinner," she said softly. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," he lied. "You don't look fine." She stepped inside without waiting for permission, her eyes scanning his tense posture, the way his hands trembled slightly. "Elijah?" she said gently. "What's wrong?" He almost told her, almost poured out the storm inside him, the weight of Valerie's expectations, the revenge that had been his purpose for years. Instead, he said, "Sometimes I feel like I don't belong here, like I'm just an outsider, even though this is supposed to be my home." Cassandra's expression softened. She moved closer, her voice low. "You do belong here. You belong with us. With me." The words hit him harder than they should have. Before he knew it, she reached out, taking his hand. Her warmth seeped into him, grounding him in a way Valerie's fire never had. They stood there for a moment, too close, the silence thick with something neither of them dared name. "I should go," Cassandra whispered. But she didn't move. Elijah's heart pounded. For a split second he thought about leaning in, about closing the distance and letting whatever this was consume them. But then Valerie's words echoed in his head again. "You are my vengeance, Elijah. My blade." He pulled his hand away. "Good night, Cassandra." She blinked, startled by his sudden coldness, and stepped back. "Good night," she murmured, leaving his room. When the door closed behind her, Elijah sank onto the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. He had never felt more torn, between the woman who raised him and the woman who was slowly breaking through his walls. Outside, the raven still waited on the sill, its black eyes unblinking, as though reminding him that Valerie was always watching. The morning after Valerie's message was grey and heavy, as though the sky itself shared Elijah's turmoil. He had not slept. The letter still sat on his desk, crumpled and accusing. Every time he closed his eyes, Cassandra's face flashed before him. The way her eyes had softened last night, the warmth of her hand in his. He should stay away from her. He should keep his distance. But as he walked through the courtyard, there she was, sitting on the edge of the fountain, the hem of her dress brushing the water, her hair catching the pale sunlight. She turned when she heard his steps, and for a moment, time stopped. "Elijah," she said softly, as though speaking his name might scare him away. He hesitated, then joined her, sitting a careful distance away. "You didn't come to breakfast either," she said, watching him. "You've been avoiding everyone." "I've been thinking," he admitted. Her brows furrowed. About what? He almost told her again, almost confessed everything. "About life," he said instead, forcing a small smile. "That's vague," she teased gently, but her eyes searched his face as though trying to read the truth he wasn't saying. For a long moment, they just sat there, listening to the trickle of water. "I don't know who I am anymore," Elijah said quietly. "Not really. I feel like I was shaped into someone else, someone I'm not sure I like." Cassandra's chest ached. She didn't understand everything, but she understood pain. She had seen it in his eyes since the day he returned. "You're still you," she whispered. "Even if you've changed, you're still my brother." The word brother should have been a comfort, but it felt like a blade twisting in his chest. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he really saw her. She was a woman, strong, graceful, and heartbreakingly close. "Cass," he said, his voice rough. She turned toward him, and their eyes locked. It happened before either of them thought it through. Elijah leaned in. Cassandra didn't pull back. Their lips met, hesitant at first, just a brush, but then deeper, desperate, as though years of grief and longing had finally found a release. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. Cassandra's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. "We can't," she whispered. "I know," Elijah said, but his voice was hoarse, his gaze still on her lips. "This is wrong." she said, standing abruptly, backing away from him. You're my brother. But even as she said it, her heart was pounding, not just with fear, but with something far more dangerous. Elijah stood too, his jaw clenched. Am I? He asked, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Cassandra froze, her brows knitting in confusion. What do you mean? Nothing, Elijah said quickly, his voice sharp. Forget I said anything. He turned and walked away, leaving Cassandra standing by the fountain, shaken to her core. That afternoon, Micha found Cassandra in the library, staring blankly at a book she hadn't turned a page of in an hour. You've been quiet, he said, watching her carefully. I'm just tired, she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Micha didn't believe her. Not for a second. Something had shifted between Cassandra and Elijah. He could feel it in the air, like the thick charge before a storm. Later that night, Micha followed Elijah to the stables. You're getting too close to her, Micha said coldly, stepping out of the shadows. Elijah turned, his eyes hard. Maybe you're just jealous. Misha's jaw tightened. You're hiding something, Elijah. I don't know what it is yet, but I'll find out. And when I do, Cassandra will know too. Elijah stepped closer, their faces inches apart. Careful, Micha. If you dig too deep, you might not like what you find. The tension between them crackled like fire. From the window above, Cassandra watched the confrontation, her heart sinking. The two men she cared about most were circling each other like predators, and she was caught in the middle, and guilty of a kiss she couldn't stop thinking about. That night, Cassandra lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment at the fountain over and over. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt Elijah's lips on hers again. And every time she told herself it could never happen again. But deep down, she knew she was lying. Micha couldn't sleep. The confrontation in the stables replayed in his mind. Every word, every glare. Something about Elijah didn't fit. The way he spoke, the things he knew, even the way he carried himself. He had spent years imagining what Cassandra's little brother might look like if he ever returned. But the man in that house was not the boy in those memories. And Micha was going to prove it. By the end of the week, Misha's secret investigators returned with a report. We found something, my lord, the older of the two said, handing Micha a small, weathered pouch. Inside was a child's bracelet, rusted, broken, and stained with what had once been blood. Misha's stomach turned. Where? Near the gorge, the guard said quietly. Buried under leaves and stones. There were bones too, small ones. We brought what we could. Micha dismissed them, waiting until he was alone before sitting heavily at his desk. The bones were too decayed for certain identification, but the bracelet... Cassandra herself had made it for Elijah the summer before he vanished. She had told him about it when he first arrived, and had shown him the second pair, a constant reminder of her bond with her brother. It was almost undeniable. The boy had died, which meant, whoever this Elijah was, he was not Cassandra's brother. Micha gripped the bracelet with white knuckles. He could take it straight to the Alpha King, end this charade once and for all. But then he thought of Cassandra, her face lighting up when she first saw Elijah, the way she had started smiling again after years of carrying grief. Would he shatter her heart just to prove himself right? Later that day, Micha found Cassandra in the garden, her hands dusted with earth as she pruned the roses. You've been quiet all morning, she said, glancing up at him. I've had a lot on my mind, he replied, studying her face. About Elijah? Micha hesitated, then nodded. Cass, are you sure? I mean, are you completely sure that's your brother? Cassandra frowned. What are you talking about? I just... Something feels off, Micha said carefully. He doesn't talk like he grew up here. He doesn't act like someone who remembers this place. He was a child when he disappeared, Micha. Of course he doesn't remember everything, Cassandra said, irritation creeping into her voice. Maybe, Micha said quietly. But what if… Don't! She cut him off sharply. Don't you dare try to take him away from me. Not after I finally got him back. Misha's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her about the report, about the bracelet, about the trail ending at the gorge. But he couldn't do it, not when she looked at him with that mixture of anger and fear. So he said nothing. That evening, Elijah stood at the edge of the forest, Valerie's letter burning in his pocket. He had tried to ignore it, tried to ignore her voice in his head, but it haunted him. He thought of Cassandra, her tears, her laugh, the way she had touched his hand. He wanted to tell her everything, wanted to tell her he wasn't her brother, that her real brother was gone, that he had come here not for family, but for vengeance. Maybe then they could stop lying to themselves. Maybe then they could stop feeling guilty for wanting each other. He turned back toward the house, his heart pounding. But before he could take a step, Valerie's voice rang in his memory. Do not betray me, Elijah. Do not betray the boy you were. Do not betray the justice you swore to bring. He stopped. His chest felt like it was being crushed. In the end, Elijah did not go to Cassandra. He returned to his room and sat alone in the dark, the confession dying on his lips. Across the hall, Cassandra sat by her window, staring into the night. She could feel the distance growing between them again, and it hurt more than she wanted to admit. When Micha passed her door and saw her there, tears glinting in her eyes, he clenched his fists. He had the truth in his hands, and he was starting to wonder if telling her might be the only way to save her from the man she was falling for. Micha didn't wait until morning. The bracelet sat on his desk like a cursed thing, gleaming faintly in the moonlight, mocking him with its quiet truth. He couldn't sit still. He couldn't watch Cassandra look at Elijah with those wide, trusting eyes for another day. So when the castle halls had gone silent, Micha made his way to Elijah's room. The door was unlocked. Elijah was seated at the edge of the bed, shirt unbuttoned, staring at nothing. His head lifted when Micha entered, his grey eyes narrowing. To what do I owe the pleasure? Elijah asked coolly. Micha stepped inside, shutting the door behind him with a quiet click. Drop the act, he said flatly. I know you're not Cassandra's brother. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. Then Elijah leaned back, a slow, cold smile spreading across his face. So you finally figured it out. Misha's jaw clenched. I sent men to the gorge. They found his bracelet. They found bones. And yet here I am, Elijah said softly, almost mockingly. You're not him, Micha spat. You're just some imposter who crawled into our lives to play at being her brother. What do you want? Money? Power? Get it and leave. Stay away from Cassandra. At that, Elijah's smile vanished. You think you get to order me around? His voice was suddenly sharp, dangerous. You're not even blood, Micha. You're just a replacement they settled for when they thought I was gone. The Alpha King gave you everything that should have been mine. Micha stepped forward until they were nearly chest to chest. Maybe I'm not blood, he said evenly, but I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who held Cassandra when she cried every night for the brother she lost. I'm the one who became the heir because you were gone. Elijah's expression darkened, but then something sly crept into his gaze. You know what I see when I look at you? Elijah asked, his voice dropping to a low, taunting murmur. I see a man who can barely stand the way Cassandra smiles at me. I see the way you look at her when you think no one's watching. You want her. Micha, you've always wanted her, but you can't touch her, not when you play the loyal adopted brother. Micha froze, his face going rigid. You don't know what you're talking about, he bit out. Oh, I do, Elijah said, his smirk widening. You'd rather keep me out of her life because every second I'm near her, she drifts farther from you. You can't compete with me. Not now. Not ever. Misha's hands curled into fists. You think what's happening between you two is love? It's a lie. And when Cassandra learns the truth, she'll hate you. She'll hate herself for even looking at you that way. Elijah's eyes gleamed. Then tell her. The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. Tell her, Elijah repeated, stepping closer, his voice low and mocking. Watch her shatter. Watch her cry until she can't breathe. And when she looks at you, it won't be with the soft affection you're desperate to keep. It'll be with disgust, because she'll know exactly what kind of thoughts her adopted brother has been hiding. Misha's fist twitched, but he forced himself to stay still. Leave her, Micha said through clenched teeth. Or I will tell her, and I don't care if she hates me for it. For a moment, neither moved. Then Elijah smirked, though there was no humour in it. Do it then. Let's see who she believes. The brother she prayed would come home, or the jealous heir who never wanted me back. Misha's breathing was harsh in the quiet room. He turned on his heel and left before his rage got the better of him. But Elijah didn't relax after he was gone. He sat on the bed for a long time, staring at the door, his chest tight. He had dared Micha to tell Cassandra. But if Micha actually did, if she looked at him with hate in her eyes. For the first time since he had stepped into this house, Elijah wondered if Valerie had been wrong. Across the hall, Micha paced his own room, gripping the bracelet so tightly it bit into his palm. He could tell Cassandra tonight. He could end this lie before it destroyed her. But then he remembered the way she had screamed at him in the garden, her voice cracking with desperation. Don't take him away from me. Micha sank onto the bed, his shoulders heavy. For now, he would wait. But one more step out of line from Elijah, one more moment of Cassandra getting hurt, and he would burn everything down. The moon hung heavy that night, casting pale silver light across the castle halls. Cassandra tossed and turned in her bed, unable to sleep. Her thoughts circled endlessly. Elijah's shadowed smiles, the rare moments where he softened, and the strange warmth that spread through her chest whenever he was near. It was wrong. It was dangerous. But she couldn't stop herself. When dawn crept in, she found herself standing outside Micha's room. He opened the door at once, as though he had been awake all night too. Micha, Cassandra said softly. Cass. He stepped aside to let her in, his heart pounding so hard he feared she might hear it. She perched on the edge of his bed, twisting her hands. I don't know what's happening to me, she whispered. When Elijah first came back, I thought I'd finally have my brother again. But he's different, and now She trailed off, her face flushing. Misha's chest tightened. He wanted to take her by the shoulders, shake sense into her, tell her that Elijah wasn't her brother, that he was a liar. Instead, he forced a smile that felt like splintered glass. You've been through a lot, he said gently. Your emotions are confused right now. It's normal. Is it? She asked, lifting her wide, troubled eyes to his. Because when he looks at me, it feels like he sees me, not just as Cassandra the princess, but me. And I can't stop thinking about him. Micha, tell me I'm not losing my mind. Micha swallowed hard. He wanted to tell her the truth so badly it burned on his tongue. But Elijah's words from last night echoed in his head. Tell her and see if she will ever look at you the same way again. So Micha just sat beside her and put an arm around her shoulders. "You're not losing your mind," he murmured. "But you need to be careful. Elijah isn't safe." Her head jerked toward him. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. He couldn't risk telling her everything. Not yet. "He's angry," Micha said carefully. "I can see it in him. There's something he's not telling us. Promise me you'll be careful." Cassandra nodded slowly, though her confusion only deepened. Elsewhere, Elijah stood alone in the training yard, his breath misting in the cool morning air. He had been awake all night too, but not from guilt. No, his mind had been busy drawing the lines of his next move. Valerie's last message still echoed in his mind. "Do not hesitate, Elijah. They must pay for what they did to me. This is what I raised you for." He clenched his jaw, his claws sliding out reflexively before he forced them back. The Alpha King was hosting the council gathering tomorrow night, a perfect opportunity. Elijah had already begun setting his plan in motion, quiet sabotage that would unravel the kingdom's stability and weaken the Alpha King's power. And yet, his chest ached when he thought of Cassandra's soft voice, her laugh, her tear-streaked face when she had first seen him again. Would she still look at him like that when she learned the truth? Back in Micha's room, Cassandra rested her head against his shoulder, trying to take comfort in his quiet strength. But when Micha looked down at her, he didn't see a sister. He saw the woman he had secretly loved for years, and the man who was taking her away from him. And somewhere deep in his gut, a decision began to form. If Elijah hurt her, if Cassandra's heart was ever truly broken, Micha wouldn't hesitate. He would burn Elijah's world to the ground. The great hall glowed with firelight, the air heavy with roasted meat and the mingled scent of wolf musk and wine. It was the first full moon feast since Elijah's return, and the Alpha King had spared no expense. Wolves from across the territory gathered under the vaulted roof, their laughter and growls echoing off the stone walls. Cassandra sat between Micha and Elijah at the long table, her stomach tight. She had dressed carefully tonight, pale blue silk that caught the light every time she moved, but she had never felt so exposed. Every time Elijah's arm brushed hers, her skin tingled. Every time Micha shifted beside her, she could feel the storm brewing inside him. It was suffocating. Micha lifted his goblet, his voice too light to be casual. "So, Elijah," he said, drawing every ear at the table. "Tell us more about the years you were gone. Cassandra loves your stories." Elijah's grey eyes flicked to him, reading the challenge behind the words. "Of course," Elijah said smoothly. He leaned back in his chair, sipping his wine. "I remember the winters first, long and cold. Valerie—" He caught himself before speaking her name. "The woman who saved me taught me to survive when the snow buried us in. She taught me to fight, to hunt, to be more than I was before." Cassandra smiled faintly, her heart aching for the boy he had been. Micha wasn't satisfied. "And what of the summers?" He pressed. "Tell us, what do you remember here? Surely you must have missed something from your childhood." The table quieted, curiosity sparking in the air. Elijah's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. He swirled the wine in his goblet, unhurried. "I remember the fig tree," he said at last, his voice smooth. "The one behind the stables. We carved our names into it, Cassandra and I. I remember the day clearly. The sun was so hot we both burned our hands on the bark trying to climb." Cassandra blinked, a small smile tugging at her lips. She did remember the fig tree, and how they had carved their names together when they were little. But then Elijah's voice shifted, softer, almost distant. "And I remember," he added, "the night you fell from the same tree. You cried so hard that father carried you all the way to your room, swearing he'd never let you climb again. Cassandra's smile faltered. She couldn't remember ever falling from that tree. She had fallen once, yes, but it had been from the apple tree near the training grounds. Elijah had been the one to help her up, his small hands trembling as he brushed dirt from her dress before calling for help. Her stomach tightened. Across the table, Micha's grin widened just slightly. He had seen it too, the flicker of doubt on her face. "How touching," Micha said smoothly. "You remember so much." Elijah turned to him, meeting his gaze with cool amusement. "Memory is a strange thing," he said, his words carrying a quiet edge. "It keeps what matters and erases the rest." The conversation moved on, but Cassandra barely heard it. She sat frozen, Elijah's words echoing in her mind. Why would he remember something that never happened? And why did it feel as though his answer hadn't been meant for the table, but for her alone? The castle halls were silent, the feast long over, but Cassandra couldn't sleep. The fig tree. The memory Elijah got wrong gnawed at her all night until she couldn't bear it anymore. She found him outside in the courtyard again, standing shirtless under the cold moonlight, his muscles coiled like a predator's. The glow of the moon caught on the faint marks on his shoulders, scars she had never seen before. "Elijah," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. He turned, eyes glinting silver in the dark. "Cassandra." She strode toward him, her hands clenched. "I need you to tell me the truth, right now." He said nothing, just watched her with that unreadable expression, waiting. "I never fell from the fig tree," she said, her voice shaking. "You said I did. You were so sure, and that's not something a real brother would forget." Still he didn't speak. Her throat tightened. "What are you hiding from me? Are you really my brother?" The silence stretched, unbearable. Then Elijah took a slow breath, as if steadying himself for a blow. "No," he said at last. His voice was quiet, but it landed like thunder. Cassandra's knees nearly gave out. "I'm not your brother," Elijah continued, his jaw hard. "Your real brother is dead." The words hit her like a strike to the chest. "No," she whispered, stumbling back. "No, that's not—" "It's the truth," he said, stepping toward her, his voice rough. "He died the day he was taken. I am not him. I never was." Cassandra's tears spilled, her breath coming fast and shallow. "Then who are you? Why did you come back?" Elijah hesitated, then looked away, his expression dark. "I came here for revenge," he admitted. "For the woman who saved me, the one your father betrayed. She raised me, trained me. She sent me here to destroy everything your family built." Cassandra's hands flew to her mouth. "Revenge?" His voice broke slightly, the mask slipping. "But then I saw you, and everything changed." Their eyes locked, and something in Cassandra's chest shifted. She should have been furious. She should have hated him. But instead, a strange, forbidden relief washed over her. She took a trembling step closer. "So you're not my brother?" "No," her tears kept falling, but her voice was soft now, almost a whisper. "Then why does it feel like I've known you all my life?" Elijah's breath shuddered. "Because we were meant to find each other, even if it's wrong." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, Cassandra reached up and pressed her palm to his cheek. "You should hate me," he rasped. "I don't," she said, her voice breaking. "I should, but I don't." And before she could think, before either of them could stop themselves, Elijah bent his head and kissed her. It was nothing like their first stolen kiss. This one was fierce, desperate, like two souls clinging to each other on the edge of ruin. When they finally broke apart, Cassandra rested her forehead against his, shaking. "This is madness," she whispered. "Yes," Elijah said hoarsely, "but I can't stay away from you." Neither noticed Micha watching from the shadows, his face pale, his hands trembling. He had come looking for Cassandra, intending to tell her everything. But now he knew she had already crossed the line, and Micha's wolf howled inside him, torn between saving her and losing her forever. Cassandra didn't go back to her room that night. She stayed in the courtyard with Elijah, the air cold, but her skin burning from the memory of his kiss. The truth had shattered everything, her idea of family, of loyalty, and yet she had never felt more alive. "Elijah?" she whispered, her fingers still pressed to his chest as though anchoring herself. "Say my name again," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "Elijah?" she breathed, and it came out like a confession. That was all it took. His mouth found hers again, harder this time, almost desperate. His hands slid to her waist, pulling her closer, until there was no space left between them. Cassandra's head spun, her wolf stirring within her, responding to him in a way she couldn't fight. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the weight of duty, or her father's expectations, or Micha's watchful gaze. She felt only this, the raw, forbidden need between them. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Cassandra's lips trembled. "This is wrong," she whispered. Elijah's forehead rested against hers. "I know. But I don't want to stop." Neither of them noticed the figure in the shadows until it was too late. Micha stood frozen, his chest heaving, watching Cassandra in Elijah's arms. It was the sight he had feared, the one he had dreaded in his bones. But now that it was real, it felt like a knife sliding between his ribs. He turned sharply and stormed back inside, fury and heartbreak pounding through him with every step. Later, Cassandra found him in his room, pacing like a caged wolf. "Micha, don't." His voice was sharp, cutting. She flinched. "I saw you," he said, turning on her. "With him. Don't try to deny it." Cassandra's throat tightened. "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," Micha roared, his wolf flashing behind his eyes. "You let him touch you. You let him kiss you. Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Tears stung her eyes. "I love him." The words tore out of her before she could stop them. Micha went still, the fight draining from his face as though she had struck him. "You love him," he repeated, hollow. Cassandra's tears spilled freely now. "Please, Micha, don't tell father. Don't tell anyone. If they find out, they'll kill him." Micha stared at her, his hands shaking. "Do you have any idea what you're asking me to do? You want me to protect him, the man who lied to all of us, the man who came here to destroy our family?" "He's not that man anymore," Cassandra said, stepping closer. "He came for revenge. Yes, but he stayed for me. Please, Micha, I can't lose him." Misha's jaw clenched, his heart twisting. He wanted to scream. He wanted to shake her until she came to her senses. But instead, he turned away, his voice flat. "If you won't see him for what he is, then I'll make sure everyone else does. I'll tell father. I'll tell the entire pack. And when they drag him out in chains, you'll remember this moment." "Micha, please." But he was already walking past her, his face like stone. In the courtyard, Elijah stood where Cassandra had left him, staring up at the moon. He had been ready to burn the Alpha King's world down. But now, he wasn't sure if he could. Not if it meant losing Cassandra. The storm broke just before dawn. Thunder rolled across the sky like a drum of war, and rain hammered the windows of Elijah's chamber, soaking the earth outside. But the real storm was inside him, clawing at his ribs, burning behind his eyes. Sleep had been impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Valerie. She stood in the dark corners of his mind, her face carved from grief, her voice sharp as the night wind. "You swore to me, Elijah. You swore you would make them pay. Have you forgotten how we bled? How we starved while they feasted?" Elijah sat on the edge of his bed, drenched in sweat despite the cold. His hands were fists against his knees. "I haven't forgotten," he muttered under his breath, though the words sounded hollow even to him. Cassandra's scent still lingered in the air from the night before, warm and soft and maddening. He dragged his hands through his hair, growling low. He was torn clean in two, the boy who had sworn vengeance and the man who wanted nothing more than to keep Cassandra safe. The throne room was silent when Micha entered, his face grim. The Alpha King looked up from the council table, his golden eyes sharp. "What is it, Micha? Speak." Micha swallowed hard, his heart hammering. He had wrestled with this decision for days, but Elijah's growing closeness to Cassandra had tipped the balance. "It's Elijah," Micha said finally, his voice low. "He's not who he says he is." The Alpha King stilled. Micha forced himself to continue. "The guards I sent, they came back with proof. The real Elijah is dead. This man is an imposter, and he came here for revenge." Cassandra was pacing when Elijah was called to the great hall. He entered with that same calm, sharp-eyed grace that unsettled everyone. But the Alpha King didn't bother with pretense. "Where is my son?" the Alpha King demanded, his voice thundering. Elijah didn't flinch. "You already know the answer," he said coldly. "Then it's true," the Alpha King said, his voice breaking. "My son is gone." "Your son died because of you," Elijah snarled, stepping forward, his wolf flashing in his eyes. "Valerie found me when no one else cared enough to look. She raised me, taught me what loyalty means, and I swore I'd make you pay." The hall erupted into shouting. Micha stepped forward, putting himself between Elijah and the Alpha King. "If you want blood, you'll have to go through me." Elijah's fury burned white-hot. "Move, Micha." "No," the Alpha King growled, his wolf rumbling through the room. "You dare step into my house, wear my son's name, and threaten me?" "Threaten you?" Elijah laughed bitterly. "I came here to end you." He shifted halfway, claws glinting in the firelight, his wolf ready to strike. The world blurred into chaos. Elijah lunged, but Cassandra's scream cut through the air like a blade. "Elijah, stop!" He froze, his claws inches from the Alpha King's throat. His chest heaved, his breath ragged. "Look at me," Cassandra begged, tears streaking her face. "This isn't you. This isn't the man I love." Something broke in Elijah then. The rage drained from him, leaving only exhaustion and pain. He stumbled back, his hands shaking. The Alpha King straightened, his expression a storm of grief and fury. "Get him out of my sight," he snarled at the guards. That night, Elijah sat in chains, blood drying on his hands. Valerie's voice came back to him, soft and mocking. "You failed me," she whispered. But Cassandra came to him, kneeling at his side. "You didn't fail," she said fiercely. "You chose me. You chose not to become the monster they think you are." Elijah looked at her, his heart breaking, because deep down he knew this wasn't over. The air outside the Alpha King's hall was heavy with silence. Cassandra stood there, chest heaving, her hands balled into fists. Micha followed her out, his face pale, his jaw set. "Cass," he started, his voice rough. She spun on him, her eyes blazing. "How could you?" Micha flinched. "I had to. He's dangerous." "No," she cut him off, her voice trembling with anger. You did this because you can't stand that I love him. Micha's expression hardened. Because you shouldn't love him. Can't you see what he is? He lied to you, Cassandra. To all of us. He came here to destroy your family. You think I don't know that? Cassandra's voice cracked, tears streaming down her cheeks. You think I haven't lain awake every night wondering if he's lying to me? If every touch, every word was just another part of his plan? But it doesn't matter, Micha. My heart chose him, and no amount of truth will change that. Micha's breath left him like a punch to the gut. You love him, he said flatly. Yes. The word hung between them like thunder. I tried to protect you, Micha whispered. I gave everything to this family. I took his place, became the heir, trained for years to keep you safe. And he comes back and takes everything, including you. Cassandra's face softened, but her voice stayed firm. You didn't lose me, Micha. You never had me. Those words landed like a killing blow. Micha turned away, hiding the tears threatening to spill. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. If you stay with him, the Alpha King will never forgive you. The pack will turn against you. You'll lose everything. Then I'll lose everything, Cassandra said fiercely. But I won't lose him. She stepped closer, her voice breaking now. You're my brother, Micha. Not by blood, but in every way that matters. I don't want to lose you, too. Micha shook his head, his shoulders trembling. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. Cassandra blinked back fresh tears. Then hate me if you must. But don't hate him. Please, Micha. Don't let this kill what's left of us. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone under the cold moonlight, his heart shattering silently. Micha's wolf stirred inside him, restless, whispering for action. And for the first time, Micha wasn't sure if he wanted to save Cassandra or save her from herself. News of Elijah's true identity spreads through the pack like wildfire. By dawn, the entire territory is in chaos. Some wolves demand Elijah's execution for daring to deceive the Alpha King. Others whisper that perhaps he has a rightful claim to leadership. Inside the prison, Cassandra refuses to leave Elijah's side despite the danger. The air is thick with tension, and Elijah, for the first time, looks almost defeated. Just as the guards begin preparing Elijah for public judgment, the ground outside rumbles with the sound of approaching paws and boots. Micha bursts into the cell, keys in hand, his face bloodied and determined. Go, he orders, unlocking Elijah's chains. Cassandra stares at him in shock, unable to move. I'm giving you a chance to run. Don't waste it. Elijah hesitates, eyes locking with Micha's. Why are you doing this? He asks bitterly. Because she loves you, Micha replies through clenched teeth, not hiding the pain in his voice. And because I'd rather die protecting her choice than watch her break. Before Elijah can speak, the first wave of warriors crashes through the prison doors. Micha shoves Elijah toward Cassandra, who is waiting outside. Run! Micha roars. Elijah grabs Cassandra's hand, and together they sprint into the woods. Behind them, Micha draws his sword, standing his ground against the furious pack warriors. Cassandra glances over her shoulder as they run, just in time to see Micha, bloodied but fierce, cutting down attacker after attacker. But the mob is too many. She sees one final blade slash across Micha's chest. He stumbles, then falls to his knees. Micha! Cassandra screams, her cry ripping through the night, but Elijah pulls her away before she can turn back. Micha's last sight is Cassandra, disappearing into the darkness, safe, and for the first time, he smiles. The night after Micha's death feels endless. Cassandra collapses in Elijah's arms, sobbing until there are no tears left. Her grief is raw, sharp, and Elijah holds her, silently taking in the pain that he knows he caused. By morning, Elijah makes a decision. He returns with Cassandra to the pack grounds, no longer running. When the Alpha King sees them, he rises in fury, demanding Elijah's execution. The pack warriors surround them, their weapons raised. But Cassandra steps forward, her voice breaking as she screams, "Enough!" Her cry silences the entire clearing. She kneels before the Alpha King, tears streaming down her face. Micha died because of this hatred. He gave his life to protect Elijah, to protect me. If you kill him now, then his sacrifice means nothing. The Alpha King falters. Micha's blood is still fresh on the earth. He looks at Cassandra, the girl he raised, and then at Elijah, who is standing unflinching, ready to die if it means ending this cycle. Elijah lowers his head. "I won't seek revenge, not anymore. I release my mother's grudge. I only ask that you let us go." The Alpha King's eyes soften. After a long silence, he gives his judgment. Elijah will live, but he is forever banished from the kingdom. Cassandra doesn't hesitate. She steps beside Elijah and takes his hand. Then I go with him. The pack watches in stunned silence as Cassandra and Elijah walk away, hand in hand, leaving the kingdom, and everything Cassandra once knew, behind. As the sun sets, Cassandra looks at Elijah. "This isn't the end," she whispers. "No," Elijah says softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "It's the beginning." Together they disappear into the horizon, two souls bound by love, carrying Micha's memory with them into their new life. Thank you, Moonshakes, for running with me through every moonlit night, every stolen glance, every heart-stopping twist of Cassandra and Elijah's journey. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment below. Tell me your favourite scene, your favourite character, and what moment made your heart race the most. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next love story we create together under the moonlight. You are the reason these stories live, breathe, and shine. Until the next one, stay wild, stay brave, and keep howling at the moon.